This is my 532 days old, natural and low-maintenance little piece of nature at home. I've been sharing its journey and changes step by step here on my channel since day one. In this video, I'm going to answer the most common questions you've asked me in the comments. Let's start with the substrate. At the bottom of the tank, there's organic garden soil, and on top of that, there's river sand. Both layers are about 3 centimeters thick on average. I absolutely don't do substrate vacuuming. This structure provides essential nutrients for the plants and helps create a self-sustaining ecosystem. If I were to vacuum the substrate, I could disturb this layer, damage plant roots, and disrupt the natural balance of the system. Over time, organic waste like fish waste and plant debris breaks down and turns into nutrients for the plants. Instead of removing it, I let it stay and support the tank's natural cycle. Of course, if there were signs of serious buildup or bad smells, I would step in. But in a healthy, balanced ecosystem, deep cleaning like that usually isn't necessary. A lot of you have been asking how I manage to keep angelfish, tetras, and rasboras together. Well, as you can see, this tank is pretty big, and I've tried to set it up as close as possible to their natural environment. There's a good number of tetras and rasboras, enough for them to school properly and feel safe. Meanwhile, the angelfish are mostly busy sorting out their own pecking order, so they pretty much ignore the other fish. That said, once the angelfish get bigger, things might change, so I'm definitely keeping an eye on them. You have been wondering how my aquarium stays so clear and free of algae without a filter or water changes. The secret is in the natural balance of the tank. I use organic soil and a thick sand cap, which together create a healthy, stable environment for the plants and microorganisms. The plants do most of the heavy lifting. They absorb excess nutrients that would otherwise feed algae, and they help keep the water clean and oxygenated. Also, I feed the fish carefully. There's not a lot of waste building up. Everything works together like a natural ecosystem, just like in rivers or lakes. That's why I don't need a filter. What you see on the left side of the tank is just a small water pump that I placed to create a bit of surface movement. I also added a mesh over its intake to prevent any surprise baby fish from getting sucked in. It's not a filter. The tank lights are on for 8 hours straight each day. I bought these LED lights from a local brand years ago, so I don't really remember all the specs. When choosing lighting, make sure to show your tank to someone who knows about aquarium setups and don't just buy lights blindly. The right lighting depends on the size of your tank and the needs of the plants and animals inside. That's why I prefer not to make specific lighting recommendations, to avoid giving wrong advice. I'm using a terrestrial plant, monstera, in my aquarium. Only part of its roots are submerged in the water, while the rest of the plant stays above the surface. When I first set up the tank, I attached the monstera to the back glass using stainless steel wire. Later on, I simply positioned it between the back of the tank and the wall to hold it in place. The monstera receives natural daylight from the window next to the aquarium. Although it doesn't grow as well as it would in a pot, it doesn't die either. Plus, it helps improve the water quality. So, how does the monstera help with the water quality? Well, even though it's a terrestrial plant, the part of its roots that's in the water still absorbs nutrients, especially things like nitrates that can build up over time and cause problems in an aquarium by taking up those extra nutrients. The monstera helps keep the water cleaner and more stable. It's kind of like having a natural filter working quietly in the background. You can actually use several other terrestrial plants in a similar way, where only their roots are in the water and the rest stays above it. For example, plants like pothos, spider plant, peace lily, lucky bamboo, philodendron, and English ivy. When it comes to feeding, I feed the fish in this tank about twice a week on average, but I don't follow strict routine. Since this is a mature tank, there are already plenty of microorganisms that the fish can feed on naturally. However, in newly set up tanks, it takes time for these microorganisms to develop. To speed up the process in a new tank, you can manually add cultures of beneficial microorganisms. But just like fish, these microorganisms also need food and hiding places to survive and thrive. In this tank, there are layers of natural debris, dried leaves, and branches at the bottom that provide both food and shelter for the microorganisms. Honestly, I could completely stop feeding the fish in this tank, and they would still be fine. They wouldn't die, but I really enjoy watching them when they eat and capturing those moments to share on my social media accounts. I usually feed them with standard commercial fish foods that match their diet, along with some artemia and bloodworms. Finally, I want to talk about water changes. Hobbyists are usually strongly divided on this topic. Some believe water changes are absolutely necessary, while others argue they should be avoided. Personally, I don't fully agree with either side. I have tanks where I do regular water changes, and tanks where I don't. Whether a water change is needed really depends on the specific tank and its conditions. Sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it's not. For example, if you want to keep a flower horn in a bare bottom tank at home without a filter and without doing water changes, it would be impossible. Your tank would only consist of glass and water, with nothing for beneficial bacteria to colonize or anything to help maintain water quality. Since flower horns produce a lot of waste and defecate frequently, you would lose your fish in a very short time. However, in a properly set up planted tank, like the example you see in this video, it is definitely possible to successfully run a system without a filter and without water changes. Long story short, regularly test your water parameters. If everything is stable and you've consciously set up your aquarium to support this kind of system, you can definitely maintain a healthy tank without doing water changes or using a filter. In this video, I did my best to answer the questions you asked me the most, just chatting with you honestly. If you have more questions, feel free to drop them in the comments and I'll make another video to answer them. And if you made it all the way to the end of the video, let me know in the comments too. I'd love to see who's been watching. As always, thank you for watching. Peace and love.